Well, let me see, it's been 2 years since your previous album, The Beekeeper. How do you look back on that album now?
It was a very different time. At that time, I had an impression that America was going to make a very different choice about who we would have to lead our country. And this is very important because it's the backstory for American Doll Posse. And while I was creating The Beekeeper, I was in a nurturing place as a mom, probably the most nurturing that I've ever been in my life. And the album was really reflective of that place, as well as hopeful, working with feminine energies and believing that we as a group of people, Americans, were going to look at the mistakes that have been made, the choices that have been made. And yet we didn't make those changes as a whole.
So you were pretty hopeful back then, and when did the idea for this album, came together for you?
As soon as The Beekeeper was released and I started touring, I was observing people. I needed to observe people. And I was dumbfounded, I was confused on what happened. Not when you look at a group of people and you look at a situation where there's so much pain being caused for us as well as others, then you have to say, well, wouldn't you as a family want to make the changes in order to stop the pain? And it always isn't what is that change, it's just you need to look at it. And so I thought to myself, I need to study and observe the women, mainly the women in America. Because you see, if they had been thinking about what was best for women and mothers, single women, girls with careers, any kind of conversation you want to have about women, you could not have chosen to have supported this regime. So I wanted to know, what happened to us? Where did the women go?
No.
And that was the beginning of my observations.
And is there one observation that still comes into your mind when you think of it? One specific observation you had, you thought, well, this is for me the really starting point of this album? One.
Intention. It was about intention of the music. Before music begins to come to me, when it's a work, not just a little song that comes to me every day, there's usually an intention here in my being. A work is reflective of what I am able to grasp at that time. If I'm closed to violence, then it's going to be really difficult for me to contain work that has at its core violent narrative. And so I guess you could say this record was able to be what it is because as a woman I was defiant and I was ferocious in my need to look at what was occurring. But then you have to ask yourself, but then how do you tap women on the shoulder? It's not always by grabbing them by the collar. Sometimes it's by showing mirrors of different reflections of themselves.